the South China Sea, just blow them out of the water. And I think that that is the Chinese plan, especially now that the Beijing Olympics have wound down, and this situation in Ukraine is going on. I think that's their next move. I could well be wrong. I've been wrong so many times before. I'm the first to admit it, but it just seems reasonable. And I think that this is going to go global. This is, and I think also too that some of the sanctions and all the nonsense that the Europeans and the Americans are talking about, they're only going to hurt themselves. The sanctions package and whatnot, it just gives the Russians the incentive to just turn away from Europe, cut off Europe, and America too, because a lot of people don't seem to realize that America imports Russian oil too, and so I think that the Russians might well say, I don't need the hassle of you Europeans and Westerners and Americans, and so I think that it's going to be really interesting. Yeah.
When you look at the way the Russian officials are speaking when they're doing their press conferences, and me and Alexander were talking about Lavrov, and compared to like von der Leyen and Biden, all these people, the Russians, like Alexander says, they seem almost relieved. In a way, there's like a sense of relief that they've ripped the Band-Aid off. Nord Stream 2, Ukraine, all of this, and now they can just move forward. You get that feeling when you look at their body language and their demeanor.
No more pretense, no more pussyfooting.
No more our partners in the West and our friends in Europe. It's like that's all gone.
Did you read Putin's Empire of Lies speech?
You posted that on your channel.
I think that speech.
Tell our audience what's your insight on that speech.
Okay, well, Putin gave a speech right after the actual invasion, and he basically, it's a declaration of war against the United States. It's not he's saying Russia was going to fight against the Americans and we will win. No. It was a cultural war, and basically it says that in the speech he said that the United States is an empire of lies, and it spreads its lies to all of its allies. And it promulgates, it pushes, it advocates unnatural ideas. It's a remarkable speech. I can have it. I can have it on my phone, and I want to read part of it, but I don't know if I switch over if the feed will get cut. Let me try, and if my feed gets cut,
give it a try. Give it a try.
Yeah, hang on. Do you
we still hear you? Yeah, we still hear you. Yeah,
you still hear me and see me? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let me read the pertinent passage. It's a remarkable speech, and I'll read what I wrote in the thing, in the post I did on Telegram. It said, Putin's Empire of Lies speech. For all intents and purposes, it's a declaration of war against the United States. He gave it on February 24th as the war in Ukraine was breaking out. So, and at that time, that's when I'd had the opportunity to read it. And here is a 3-paragraph section. It's a bit long, but I think it's very important that I'm speaking to Alex's audience, that you listen to it carefully, because it's very provocative and very insightful and very damning of the United States and the West. Putin said in his speech, incidentally, U.S. politicians, political scientists, and journalists write and say that a veritable empire of lies has been created inside the United States in recent years. It is hard to disagree with this. It is really so. But one should not be modest about it. The United States is still a great country and a system-forming power. All its satellites not only humbly and obediently say yes to and parrot it at the slightest pretext, but also imitate its behavior and enthusiastically accept the rules it is offering them. Therefore, one can say with good reason and confidence that the whole so-called Western Bloc, formed by the United States in its own image and likeness, is, in its entirety, the very same empire of lies. As for our country, said Putin, after the disintegration of the USSR, given the entire unprecedented openness of the new modern Russia, its readiness to work honestly with the United States and other Western partners, and its practically unilateral disarmament, they immediately try to put the final squeeze on us, finish us off, and utterly destroy us. This is how it was in the 1990s and the early 2000s, when the so-called collective West was actively supporting separatism and gangs of mercenaries in southern Russia. What victims, what losses we had to sustain, and what trials we had to go through at that time before we broke the back of international terrorism in the Caucasus. We remember this and will never forget. Properly speaking, the attempts to use us in their own interests never ceased until quite recently. They sought to destroy our traditional values and force on us their false values that would erode us, our people from within, the attitudes that have been aggressively imposing on their countries, attitudes that are directly leading to degradation and degeneration because they are contrary to human nature. This is not going to happen. No one has ever succeeded in doing this, nor will they succeed now. I mean, that's powerful stuff. I don't know if you lost my feed.
We
Hello?
heard everything. We heard everything, and now we see you. Yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, that is powerful, powerful stuff. I mean, he's basically saying, number one, in those three paragraphs, he's saying, the United States is imperialist and it's an empire built on lies. And it's an imperialism that they have imposed on their so called allies of the Western Bloc. And number two, he is blaming this empire of lies for the misery of Russia during the 1990s and 2000s, and also the almost disintegration of the Russian state. And he's completely accurate on this, by the way. The Russian state during the 90s, I mean, Russia was treated like a cheap prostitute. They were actively trying to destroy the Russian nation and just take it apart and feed on it like hyenas, you know? And I mean, this is undisputed. Matt Taibbi has written a great deal about this and is extremely interested. And he blames it on the West. And then he finally says, the values of this empire of lies are values that are anathema to us, and we want no part of them. And we're going to fight them because they are decadent and degenerate, and they violate the conception of human nature. This is powerful stuff. This is basically a cultural war. And so once you view it that way and understand the stakes, you realize why the wokesters who are in control of the European and American leadership class, they hate Putin. They want to demonize him because he's got their number. He has called them out. He knows exactly who they are. They are decadent and degenerate. And he wants no part of that for Russia, no part of that for the Eastern European peoples, no part of that in any fashion whatsoever. And he's willing to fight for it. He's willing to fight against it. And my thoughts here is that I think that a lot of the political right, the dissident right in the West, they instinctively recognize this of Putin. Because, see, Putin is not saying this, is not spending all this time on these issues, just to, win some minor little group within the West. No, he believes it. I mean, if somebody says something, you have to take them at their word. You can't pretend or think that they're actually thinking of something else. No. What they say is what they believe. It's very, very difficult to articulate what you truly believe. And so when somebody does so, you take them at their word. And, paragraphs like those three that I read that are admittedly long, but they're crucial. They tell you what this man thinks. And he thinks that the West is decadent and degenerate and wants no part of that for Russia because he does not want to see his people degenerate the way that they have degenerated in the West. And that's why I think so many people on the right and the dissident voices, be they right, center, or left, in many ways sort of like feel comradeship with Putin because they instinctively recognize that he is as against the wokesters as they are. And so that's what's going on. And a lot of people think, these people in the West are fascists and they see Putin as a fascist. No, they see him as a man who believes in human dignity and resists the decadence and degeneracy that's been going on in the West for so long. I mean, I can only speak for myself. I mean, I look at the West and it's decadent and degenerate and disgusting. I could live in the West right now. I have the passports and I have the clean bill of health insofar as legal issues are concerned. I mean, I've never even been arrested, let alone charged with anything. I could live wherever I want in the West. I want no part of the West because it is decadent and degenerate. And we all know it. We all see it. We all see these, these trans people swimming in girls' college swim meets and defeating them by, pool lengths. And everybody just absurdly follows the lie that, oh, yeah, they're women too. All this decadence and degeneracy. It's disgusting. And Putin is calling it out. And because of it, the West, the leadership of the West, again, instinctively recognizes that he wants no truck with their decadence and degeneracy. And that's why they hate him so much, because they recognize an enemy. See, I mean, he is an enemy of this stuff. And you could say that he's a dictator, which is true. You can say that he's an authoritarian, which is true. You can say all kinds of very true accusations about him. But he's right. And that's the thing that tears them apart, these wokesters in West. He's right. And he's called them out. And that speech, the Empire of Lies speech, which I recommend everybody read it. And Alex, I'd ask you, for your audience's sake, I'm sure many of your audience members would be very interested in reading it. It is not some screed. It is not, some crazed ramblings. It's very coherent and it's devastating. And it is a call to action against the West. And I, for one, find it impossible to dismiss. And I think that open-minded people who read it carefully will come to the same conclusion, that you cannot dismiss what he has said. Yeah, that's what I think.
He was confronted with this question during one of his press conferences about the woke culture, and he pretty much summarized what you just read right now. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But Gonzalo, what's the link that people can find you and that speech?
You can find me on Telegram. That's where I'm posting, because what happened was that I have the CRP channel, and that was suspended for just some nonsense. Right? I was suspended for 90 days, and that 90-day suspension was supposed to end at the end of March. But all of a sudden, I've discovered that I'm live again. I'm able to post again. I wasn't even notified by YouTube, and so that it means I'm going to have to rearrange my plans. But the problem is that all of my material, my videos and whatnot that I'm going to post is in Kharkov, so that's going to have to wait. But for now, you can find me on Telegram, and you can definitely find me on Patreon. Alex, I do believe you have both links. I'd appreciate if you could post them.
I'll get those links and I'll put them up. Yeah.
And
Patreon and Telegram, they just search Coach Red Pill at Coach Red, at Gonzalo Lira.
No, I think it's called Real CRP. Actually, let me go and check it. Let me go and check it. If I wink out, you'll tell me. Hang on a second. It's called Real CRP.
Real CRP. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so just go to Telegram, everybody. Real CRP, and that's where you can plug into just really, really great content. And
I mean,
just doing a great job.
I don't have any editorial line, because you and Alexander are so disciplined. You're on point, right? And I post whatever is on my mind, and so it's more of a hodgepodge. Sometimes I post silly memes, sometimes incredibly wholesome content, and sometimes just decadent and degenerate stuff that I think is funny. So it's a hodgepodge. I mean, I am not so serious and disciplined as you two gentlemen are. And that's why it's always a pleasure being on your show, because, you guys, by your very demeanor, you force me to be I have to pretend to be smart. Okay. And it's really hard.
I wouldn't say you're pretending. Like I said, I think that I don't know what your future plans are, Gonzalo, with your content and your broadcasting, but there's no doubt that you have a definite talent for analyzing these situations.
Well, and I tell everybody, and I have no problem telling it to your face and to your audience, you guys, as far as I'm concerned, produce the best, the smartest geopolitical analysis. And I really am liking your videos, the ones that you're walking and talking. They're cool. I'm liking them a lot. And I like the fact that you keep changing what you're doing with your videos. Because Alexander is a he's like all it was the same, good day, and he does his things, and whereas you mix it up, and so it's always a delight to watch you guys and your show. I'm just total fanboying you guys, okay, because you guys really are the best geopolitical analysis, and I can't wait for you guys to step up insofar as your stage